Hello and welcome back to our Canada's Used Car Week live stage. I'm Joe Overby, Senior Editor of Auto Remarketing Canada and co-host of the Auto Remarketing Podcast. And I'm joined today by Ted Berlovich, who is Director of Wholesale at Clutch. Ted, great to see you, and thanks for joining us on the live stage.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think most of our viewers and listeners will know a little bit about Clutch, but tell me, 30,000 foot view of what Clutch does and what your job as director of wholesale entails.
Yeah, for sure. So a 30,000 foot view, Clutch buys and sells used cars online. That's the gist of it. As director of wholesale at Clutch, I oversee everything, every vehicle that Clutch doesn't retail. Anything that doesn't make it to our retail website, clutch.ca, comes into my world at Clutch. When I started, Clutch was really doing a handful of vehicles a month wholesale, and we've been able to grow that to thousands of vehicles sold across Canada in different auctions in Ontario, British Columbia, Nova Scotia. We've built the team to focus specifically on the speed of sale, and we pretty much cover the full remarketing life cycle, anything from the disposition decision, the channel strategy, the operations, the logistics, and the partner relationships as well.
So how does that wholesale process work? Number one, from a vehicle acquisition standpoint of finding the cars for Clutch to sell to retail customers, but also from the disposition standpoint. I imagine Clutch can be both a buyer and a seller in wholesale channels.
Yeah, that's right. So Clutch Wholesale is a net seller at the auction, which just means that we sell significantly more than we buy at the auctions. The acquisition side happens further upstream, where we buy a significant portion of vehicles directly from the consumer.
Okay.
So on the disposition side, however, after we acquire a vehicle, what happens is we determine right away if that vehicle has the potential of becoming what we call a Clutch certified vehicle, which effectively means doesn't meet our retail standard. And if it doesn't, it comes to wholesale. And again, wholesale's job is to sell that vehicle as quickly as possible for the most amount of money as possible.
So do you use online sales channels, brick and mortar sales channels, or kind of a mix?
Yeah, I mean, Clutch Wholesale is a digital first business, just like the rest of Clutch. But at the end of the day, cars are physical assets.
Yeah.
So a big part of what we do has a physical operation to it. We have dirt lots all over the country. We have facilities that we use. We have compounds. The operational piece is really just moving the vehicles from place to place, capturing the vehicle, doing a whole 360 photo shoot of the vehicle to disclose and list at the online auction. And we use the majority of online auctions that are available in Canada. And again, the thing that we try to do is balance the speed to sell that vehicle and the disclosure accuracy of that vehicle.
So is there how do you touched on this a little bit, but how do you handle some of those ancillary services, transportation, reconditioning, condition reports, inspections that come on either side of that used car life cycle?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's where our operational muscle really gets to flex. The way I look at it is anything that is adjacent or directly impacts the trust between us as Clutch as the seller and the buyer, the dealers that are buying the vehicles from us, is something that we want to own in-house. So the way we look at it, we break it down to logistics, internal and external. Internal means the shuttling and movement of vehicles between different lots, to mechanics and back. We have external logistics, which is the movement of vehicles and delivery of vehicles to the dealers that buy the vehicles from us at the auction. And we don't do a lot of it, but we do some amount of that movement. The capture process as well. We have an in-house capture team that does a 360 photo shoot, the interior and the exterior of the vehicle, the code scans, the disclosures. If there's any issues with the vehicle that we know, we'll list it on the vehicle disclosure. And like I said, trust is number one. So, inspections, the condition reporting, uh, arbitration, all of that actually sits in-house with us because we found that, especially at the size and scale that we operate in, we want to bake in as much trust before that vehicle is listed with the buyer so that they know and have the confidence to bid on the vehicle that we're listing at the end of the day. And that's what's super important for us.
So what are, looking at the used car retail market in Canada, especially the digital piece of it, what are some challenges and opportunities that you see?
Yeah, Joe, I think that's a great question. I think when we look at Canada, there's really two dynamics that are happening. The supply is super thin around the entire country, and where you do find the supply, it's the liquidity actually sits geographically in the major corridors. And what that means is, in Toronto versus maybe somewhere up north, you might not have the same amount of cars and both the buyer depth and the supply to bring those two pieces together. And I think, if we look at a place like the US, it's very different where you have liquidity somewhat even around. So I think the opportunity is, dealers have the really two choices. One, they can try to build their trade-in system where, they have to market to a customer to come in to buy the vehicle from them directly, or they have to buy that vehicle at the auction where they have to compete away their margin on transport, the time it takes to transport the vehicle, reconditioning costs, finding surprises, the arbitration process these days. So they compete away their margin and they're not there's not much left on the bone as a result of it. So I think the opportunity sits with sellers that come to the auction week after week, sale after sale, with high quality inventory, with strong disclosures, where they stand behind the vehicle and listing the vehicle week after week. At Clutch, we run a very unique process. We run an unreserved auction where, as soon as a dealer bids once, where the effectively the starting bid unlocks the reserve and the vehicle sells to the highest bidder. About 80 to 90% of our vehicles that we run at auction run unreserved. So we give a fair and honest chance for everybody to bid on the vehicles that we run at the auction.
Has the dynamics of the Canadian market that you describe of, the liquidity situation where you have, you know, buyers concentrated in a certain area and supply not necessarily concentrated in the same area. Has just the way the layout of the Canadian market has that impacted the appetite for online sales and transactions? Where you might have areas of high density of vehicles being shipped to other parts of the country.
I think it actually poses a unique opportunity, and I'll
Yeah.
get to that in a sec. So, what I think is interesting, specifically on the appetite side, I mean, look in the US, right? You have players like Carvana, which have been able to scale their business to hundreds of thousands of transactions, both on the sell and the buy side. And it shows that there is an appetite, there is a demand, there is a slice of the market that is interested in transacting online. If we look at Canada, well, nobody's really operating at the size and scale that we are doing it in Canada. So, I mean, it creates a unique opportunity where, as we grow the retail side of the business, there are more wholesale cars that we end up acquiring, which allows us, to your point on, the dispersion of inventory, allows us to aggregate that supply from all over the country and bring it centrally to an auction where we get to sell that vehicle in an unreserved manner. So for every vehicle that we don't retail, that we don't end up listing, we get to aggregate and bring it to the auction at the end of the day.
And how would you describe the kind of competitive landscape in Canada for online car retails? Maybe you look at the US, say 4 or 5 years ago, you had three or four major um, online used car retailers. They're even publicly traded. Now only one of them exists, and that's Carvana.
Mhm.
What has been your experience in Canada in terms of those players coming up like Clutch? I mean, how has that affected how you operate and what are what's the competitive set, I guess?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think like over the years, what we've done very great is just focus on investing millions of dollars on the Clutch brand,
Yeah.
right? And growing the following on the retail and the wholesale side, really. But to create to add visibility to what Clutch does, who Clutch is, and what Clutch is all about. And I think that's what we've just been focusing on to drive a lot of demand for what the service that we offer at the end of the day.
So we're almost at the end of June here. So what's on your roadmap and radar for the second half of the year? Where are you guys looking to take Clutch?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the same thing. We want to get really good on the operational side as we continue to grow the business. Like I said, as the retail side of the business grows, wholesale does inevitably end up scaling as well. And we want to make sure that as part of it, the operations is really tightened up, and we continue to focus on what we're really good at, which is servicing the customers around Canada.
Excellent. Well, we'll leave it there for today, Ted. Great talking with you, and thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, Joe, thank you so much. It was great to be here, and I hope we could do something again soon.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in to our live stage session today. We will be back with more from Canada's Used Car Week. Thanks for listening.